Commander Vex'thor of the Burning Talon Fleet had conquered 47 worlds. He'd reduced entire civilizations to ash, scattered armies like dust, and made warlords weep. So naturally, when he received the challenge from Earth, a backwater planet barely capable of faster-than-light communication, he laughed so hard his secondary lungs inflated. "They accept? Accept?" Vex'thor bellowed, his crimson scales rippling with amusement. His bridge crew shifted uncomfortably. These hairless primates actually agreed to single combat? "Yes, Commander," squeaked his communications officer, a nervous plebeian named Court. Their representative confirmed. Champion versus champion. Winner takes the contested mining rights to the Andromeda Belt. Vex'thor's tail whipped back and forth, striking sparks against the metal flooring. Idiots. Beautiful, suicidal idiots. The ancient laws were clear. When two species disputed territory, they could opt for trial by beast. Each side presented their fiercest creature, their most dangerous predator. The animals fought. Winner took all. It saved time, resources, and honestly, Vex'thor appreciated the efficiency. Plus, he never lost. His beast, Doomfang, was a Krellian Death Stalker, 12 feet of pure muscle, covered in armor plating that could deflect plasma fire. 6 razor-sharp legs, mandibles that could crush steel, and a temperament that made rabid wolverines look cuddly. Vex'thor had acquired Doomfang after the siege of Praxis 9, where the creature had single-handedly killed an entire battalion. It was his pride, his ultimate weapon, his undefeated champion. "Prepare the combat arena," Vex'thor ordered. "Standard configuration. And make sure the viewing screens are working. I want every species in this sector to watch humanity's humiliation." 3 days later, Vex'thor stood in the arena on Neutral Station Gamma 7, Doomfang chained beside him. The beast snarled, saliva dripping from its mandibles, already hungry for violence. Around them, thousands of beings from dozens of species had gathered to watch. Holographic cameras floated everywhere, broadcasting across 50 star systems. The humans were late. "Typical," Vex'thor muttered. Probably realized their mistake and fled. "Commander," Court's voice crackled through his earpiece. "The human vessel has docked. Their representative is approaching." The arena doors hissed open. Vex'thor straightened, preparing to witness whatever monstrosity Earth had brought. Perhaps one of their mythical bears. Or maybe a great white shark in an aquatic chamber. He'd heard stories about human predators, though honestly, they all sounded pathetic compared to the galaxy's real threats. A man walked in. Just a man. He was average height, maybe 5'10", wearing casual clothing, jeans, a t-shirt with some incomprehensible human script, sneakers that had seen better days, brown hair, slightly messy, with a 2-day stubble on his face. He looked like he just rolled out of bed, and he was carrying a pet carrier. "What?" Vex'thor's confusion echoed through the arena. "Where is your champion?" The man, who introduced himself as David Tucker, set down the carrier and grinned. "Right here, big guy." He opened the gate. A cat emerged. Not a lion, not a tiger, not even a particularly large housecat. Just a regular orange tabby cat with white paws and the most utterly disinterested expression Vex'thor had ever seen on any living creature. It sat down, yawned, and began licking its paw. The arena fell silent. "That," Vex'thor finally managed, pointing with a trembling claw, "is your battle beast?" "This," David corrected proudly, "is Mr. Whiskers, 3-time winner of the apartment complex most photogenic pet competition, terror of the neighborhood birds, destroyer of furniture, and as of last Tuesday, officially certified as an emotional support animal, which, fun fact, let me bring him through customs." Vex'thor's brain struggled. "To process this information, you brought a pet. I brought a champion," David said cheerfully. "You guys never specified size requirements in your challenge, just said fiercest creature. And buddy, let me tell you, Mr. Whiskers once fought a raccoon 3 times his size and won. Little guy's got spirit. This is an insult," Vex'thor roared. "A mockery. I will not sully Doomfang's record by fighting a domestic pet." "Too late," David said, pulling out a tablet. "Contract signed. Broadcasts live. 47 star systems watching right now, according to this counter. Wow, that's a lot of viewers. Hi everyone. He waved at the nearest camera. Mr. Whiskers continued grooming himself, completely oblivious to the 12-foot killing machine growling 10 feet away. Or perhaps, and this thought disturbed Vex'thor more, the cat simply didn't care. You realize your creature will die? Vex'thor said slowly. Doomfang will tear it apart in seconds. Maybe. David shrugged. But hey, that's show business. Are we doing this or what? I've got a flight back to Earth in 6 hours, and I'd really like to grab dinner first. Does this station have a food court? Vex'thor looked at his advisors. They looked back helplessly. The ancient laws were absolute. The challenge had been issued and accepted. There was no backing out now, regardless of how utterly absurd the situation had become. Fine, Vex'thor snarled. He turned to his beast handlers. Release Doomfang. Let's get this farce over with. The chains fell away. Doomfang surged forward, all 12 feet of armored death, mandibles clicking with anticipation. The crowd gasped. Some covered their eyes. The more squeamish species looked away entirely. Mr. Whiskers glanced up from his grooming. For a moment, nothing happened. The cat stared at the charging Death Stalker. The Death Stalker stared back, probably confused about why its prey wasn't running. David stood off to the side, filming with his phone. Then, Mr. Whiskers did something that would be analyzed by xenobiologists for the next century. He puffed up. His fur stood on end, making him appear roughly twice his normal size, which brought him to almost 1/10 the size of Doomfang. His ears flattened against his skull. His tail expanded into a bottle brush, and from somewhere deep in his tiny chest came a sound that should not have been physically possible from a creature weighing maybe 10 pounds, a hiss that could curdle blood. Doomfang stopped. The mighty Krellian Death Stalker, undefeated champion of 47 worlds, veteran of countless battles, predator without peer, stopped dead in its tracks. David said helpfully. Cats don't really like things running at them. Makes them nervous. Mr. Whiskers hissed again, this time adding a guttural yowl that somehow harmonized with the hiss in a way that sounded genuinely demonic. He arched his back, becoming a furry orange semicircle of pure indignation. Doomfang took a step backward. What are you doing? Vex'thor screamed at his beast. It's tiny. Attack! But something primal had awoken in Doomfang's primitive brain. Some ancient prey instinct that predated his species' evolution into apex predators. He was looking at a creature that, despite being smaller, was acting like it absolutely refused to acknowledge the size difference. The Death Stalker's complex neural pathways, designed for hunting and killing, couldn't compute this paradox. Mr. Whiskers took a step forward. Doomfang took 2 steps back. No, Vex'thor whispered. No. The cat advanced. Not quickly. Not in a charge. Just a casual, measured walk, as if he owned the arena and was simply inspecting his territory. His tail remained puffed, his ears flat, his eyes locked on Doomfang with the intensity of a creature that had never lost a staring contest in his life. And Doomfang, conqueror of armies, retreated. Fight! Vex'thor bellowed. Doomfang. Fight! The Death Stalker tried. It really did. It lunged forward, mandibles snapping, but Mr. Whiskers was faster. The cat dodged left, then right, moving with the liquid grace that had let his ancestors survive for millennia. And every time Doomfang attacked, Mr. Whiskers responded with another ear-splitting yowl, another aggressive hiss, another display of the sheer audacity that only cats possess. Then, Mr. Whiskers did something that would become legendary. He swatted Doomfang on the nose, claws extended, lightning fast, right on the sensitive tip of the Death Stalker's mandible cluster. Doomfang yelped. Actually yelped. The sound was captured by every camera, broadcast across 50 star systems, and would be replayed in military academies for generations as an example of psychological warfare. The Death Stalker turned and ran. Not retreated strategically. Not regrouped. Ran. Like a puppy who'd been scolded. It scrambled back toward Vex'thor, trying to hide behind its master's legs, making pitiful whimpering sounds that no apex predator should ever make. Mr. Whiskers sat down, yawned, and resumed grooming his paw. The arena was silent. Then someone started laughing. A Gralaxian in the upper stands. Then another. And another. Within seconds, Thousands of beings were howling with laughter, the sound echoing through the massive space. David walked over, scooped up Mr. Whiskers, and scratched behind his ears. "Good boy. Who's a fierce warrior? You are." "Yes, you are," the cat purred. Vex'thor stood frozen, his entire worldview crumbling. His undefeated champion was cowering. His reputation was in ruins. And he'd lost a valuable mining territory to a species that brought housecats to battle. "So," David said cheerfully, "about those mining rights? I've got the transfer documents right here, if you want to make this official." "How?" Vex'thor managed. "How is this possible?" "Oh, that's easy," David said. "See, cats are ambush predators. They're wired to fight things way bigger than them because they evolved hunting prey while also avoiding becoming prey themselves. No sense of proportional response. Mr. Whiskers here doesn't know he's small. Nobody told him, so when he sees a threat, he just commits. But Doomfang is a Death Stalker. Yeah, and Mr. Whiskers is a cat. Cats run on spite, attitude, and the absolute certainty that they're the most important creature in any room. You can't intimidate something that believes the universe revolves around it." Vex'thor looked at his beast, still trembling. Then at the cat, now napping in David's arms. Then at the thousands of cameras capturing his humiliation. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "Actually, legally it is," David said, pulling up his tablet. Article 7, Section 3 of the Trial by Beast Accords. Combat ends when one creature refuses to engage for longer than 60 seconds. Your guy's been hiding for. Yep, 90 seconds now. We win. But hey, thanks for playing. The arena erupted in cheers, mostly from species who'd suffered under Vex'thor's conquests, and were absolutely thrilled to see him humiliated by a housecat. David collected his paperwork, loaded Mr. Whiskers back into the carrier, and headed for the exit. Just before leaving, he turned back. "Oh, and Commander? You might want to get your beast some therapy. I hear they've got great animal psychologists on Kepler Station. Really helped my neighbor's dog with his fear of thunder." The doors closed. Vex'thor stood alone in the arena, his empire's reputation in tatters, defeated by an animal that weighed less than his breakfast. Somewhere, in the carrier, Mr. Whiskers yawned again, utterly unaware that he'd just changed galactic history. The next morning, Vex'thor woke up to 17,000 memes. His second-in-command, a brutish Thargon named Brelix, stood at attention beside his sleeping pod, holding a datapad with trembling claws. "Commander, the overnight analytics are, concerning." "Define concerning," Vex'thor growled, his head pounding from too much Krellian whiskey. He'd spent the previous night trying to drink away the memory of his humiliation. It hadn't worked. "Well, sir, someone created a holographic remix of the battle set to human music. It has 40 million views. There's also a children's educational program about cats being made on 6 different worlds. Several toy manufacturers have already released action figures of Mr. Whiskers defeating various galactic threats. And, someone started a petition to rename this entire sector after the cat." Vex'thor snatched the datapad. His eyes widened as he scrolled through the flood of content. Animated GIFs, commentary videos, academic papers analyzing the psychology of feline warfare, a betting pool predicting which species Mr. Whiskers would defeat next. "This is a nightmare," he muttered. "It gets worse, sir. The High Council wants to speak with you. Immediately." 30 minutes later, Vex'thor stood before the Galactic Military High Council via holographic transmission. 12 of the most powerful beings in known space stared at him with expressions ranging from disappointment to barely suppressed amusement. Chancellor Miraketh, a towering insectoid with compound eyes, spoke first. "Commander Vex'thor, your defeat has caused quite the stir." "It was a fluke," Vex'thor protested. "An anomaly. The creature used psychological tactics that shouldn't work on a Death Stalker." "I demand a rematch!" "A rematch?" General Thorne, a crystalline being whose voice sounded like breaking glass, actually chuckled. "With what? Your champion is currently in medical bay receiving treatment for acute anxiety disorder. The veterinarians say he flinches every time he sees anything orange. Besides," Admiral Cross added, his tentacles waving dismissively, The humans have declined your rematch request. They're too busy processing their new mining rights. Apparently, they've already extracted enough rare minerals to fund their space program for the next decade. But I can fix this. Vex'thor slammed his fist on the console. Give me another chance. I'll find a stronger beast. A better strategy. I'll personally train against feline combat tactics. That won't be necessary. Chancellor Miraketh said coldly. You're being reassigned. Effective immediately, you'll be commanding the diplomatic outreach program to newly contacted civilizations. What? That's a desk job. Yes. A desk job where you can't lose to house pets on live broadcast. Consider yourself fortunate we're not court-martialing you for incompetence. The transmission ended. Vex'thor stood in his empty quarters, rage boiling through every scale on his body. He'd spent decades building his reputation as the galaxy's most feared commander. One cat, one ridiculous human, and it was all gone. He needed revenge. Not officially, not through military channels, something personal. Brelix entered cautiously. Sir, I might have information you'd find interesting. Unless it involves a time machine so I can prevent yesterday from happening, I don't care. The human, David Tucker. I did some research. He's not military personnel. He's a software engineer from a place called Portland. Lives alone, works from home. The only reason he was selected as Earth's representative was because he submitted his application as a joke, and apparently, their bureaucracy is so disorganized they didn't realize until it was too late. Vex'thor's eyes narrowed. Go on. He's currently on a transport back to Earth, scheduled to stop at 3 different stations for refueling, including Outpost Zeta, which is, conveniently, outside major security jurisdictions. A plan began forming in Vex'thor's mind. Not a military operation. Nothing official that could be traced back to him. Just a simple interception. Maybe the human would have an unfortunate accident. Maybe Mr. Whiskers would mysteriously disappear. The galaxy would forget about the whole embarrassing incident, and Vex'thor could rebuild his reputation through quieter, less televised conquests. Prepare my personal ship, he ordered. And find me someone expendable. A bounty hunter. Someone with no official ties to our fleet. 2 days later, David Tucker sat in the cafeteria of Outpost Zeta, eating what the menu optimistically called a burger while Mr. Whiskers lounged in his carrier beside him. The cat had become something of a celebrity. 3 different species had already approached asking for photographs. A Grillaxian child had burst into tears of joy upon seeing him. You're handling fame well, David told the cat, who responded by ignoring him completely and staring at a wall. Very presidential. A shadow fell across his table. David looked up to find an enormous reptilian creature looming over him. The alien wore combat armor and had more weapons strapped to his body than seemed physically practical. His face was scarred, his eyes cold and professional. David Tucker? The alien's voice sounded like gravel in a blender. Yeah? If you want a selfie with Mr. Whiskers, you'll have to wait. He's on his union-mandated break. I'm Skargath. I've been hired to deliver a message. The bounty hunter placed a small device on the table. A hologram flickered to life, showing Vex'thor's face. Hello, David, the commander's image sneered. I hope you've enjoyed your brief moment of glory, but I think it's time we had a private conversation about your theft of what rightfully belongs to the Burning Talon fleet. Mr. Skargath has been instructed to escort you to a secure location where we can discuss renegotiating our agreement. Huh, David said, taking another bite of his burger. That sounds a lot like kidnapping. Call it what you want, the hologram continued. But if you refuse, well, accidents happen in space stations, particularly to small, defenseless pets who might wander away from their owners. The hologram winked out. Skargath cracked his knuckles, which, given that he had 6 fingers per hand, took a while. So, we doing this easy or hard? David looked at Mr. Whiskers, who had finally stopped staring at the wall, and was now watching the bounty hunter with those inscrutable cat eyes. Then David looked back at Skargath and smiled. You know what? I've been wanting to test a theory. How do you feel about cats? What? I don't. I'm here to collect you, not discuss pets. Right. But humor me. Have you ever actually met a cat before? No, and I don't care to. Now move. See, that's fascinating, David said, standing up slowly. Because most species in the galaxy haven't evolved alongside cats. You don't have that instinctive understanding of how they work, which means you're about to learn a very important lesson about Earth's apex predator. Apex predator? Skargath laughed. That tiny thing? David opened the carrier door. Mr. Whiskers emerged, stretched languorously, and fixed his gaze on the bounty hunter. His tail began swishing back and forth in that particular way that cat owners recognized as a warning sign. His pupils dilated to full black pools. Listen carefully, David said. Cats have over 500 million years of predatory evolution. They can rotate their ears 180 degrees to track prey. They can jump 6 times their body length. Their reaction time is faster than a snake strike. And most importantly, they have exactly 0 fear response when cornered. You're insane, Skargath said, reaching for David. Mr. Whiskers moved. It wasn't a pounce or an attack in any conventional sense. It was a blur of orange fury that defied physics. The cat went straight up Skargath's armor like a furry missile, claws finding purchase in every gap and seam. In less than 3 seconds, Mr. Whiskers had climbed to the bounty hunter's head and was now perched there, yowling directly into his ear hole while simultaneously batting at his eyes. Skargath screamed, a high-pitched, undignified sound that turned every head in the cafeteria. He spun around, trying to dislodge the cat, but Mr. Whiskers had apparently decided this was now his territory and had no intention of leaving. The bounty hunter stumbled backward, crashed into a table, and fell over, sending food flying everywhere. Mr. Whiskers rode him down like a tiny, furious cowboy, never once losing his balance. David calmly pulled out his phone and started recording. This is going straight to the group chat. Kevin's never going to believe this. Station security arrived within minutes, attracted by the screaming and the small crowd that had gathered to watch a 10-pound cat absolutely demolish a professional killer. By the time they pulled Mr. Whiskers off, Skargath was curled in a fetal position, whimpering about the eyes and the claws, and please make it stop. The security chief, a no-nonsense Valorian named Captain Jax, listened to David's explanation while Mr. Whiskers sat calmly in his arms, purring like nothing had happened. So, let me understand, Jax said slowly. Commander Vex'thor hired this bounty hunter to kidnap you and your cat because he's embarrassed about losing a legal combat trial? That about sums it up, David confirmed. And your cat single-handedly defeated a trained mercenary? I mean, I helped by opening the carrier. Jax stared at Mr. Whiskers for a long moment. The cat yawned, showing all his tiny teeth. I'm writing this up as an attempted kidnapping with intent to violate treaty law. The High Council is going to have Vex'thor's hide for this. Cool. Can I get a copy of your security footage? This is viral gold. Within hours, the second wave of Mr. Whiskers' content flooded the galactic network. This time, however, the tone shifted. It wasn't just funny anymore. It was legitimately impressive. Military analysts started breaking down the cat's attack patterns. Self-defense instructors began incorporating feline tactics into their programs. 3 different governments formally requested to study Earth's cats as potential defensive assets, and Vex'thor's carefully concealed involvement in the kidnapping attempt was exposed when Skargath, hoping for a reduced sentence, provided full documentation of their arrangement. The High Council recalled Vex'thor immediately. Not for reassignment this time. For trial. David watched the proceedings via live stream from his apartment in Portland 2 weeks later. Mr. Whiskers slept on his lap, completely oblivious to the chaos he'd caused. The commander stood before the council, his scales pale with shame, as Chancellor Miraketh read the charges. Attempting to circumvent legal treaty obligations through violence, hiring mercenaries for illegal activities, and perhaps most seriously, underestimating Earth's strategic capabilities not once, but twice. The Chancellor's compound eyes glittered with what might have been amusement. Commander Vex'thor, you are hereby stripped of rank, removed from military service, and sentenced to 5 years of community service teaching conflict resolution to juvenile offenders. Vex'thor's roar of outrage was muted as security escorted him away. David's phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number with a galactic standard code. Mr. Tucker, this is Ambassador Williams from Earth's Diplomatic Corps. We need to talk about your cat. Several governments want to establish formal trade agreements for feline exports. Also, The United Nations would like to offer you a position as special consultant for unexpected xenobiological advantages. The pay is excellent. Please call at your earliest convenience." David looked down at Mr. Whiskers, who had woken up and was now demanding dinner with insistent meows. "Buddy, I think we accidentally started something big." The cat headbutted his hand, clearly unimpressed with galactic politics, and very impressed with his own empty food bowl. 6 months later, Earth's embassy on the Galactic Council station included a dedicated cat cafe. Dozens of felines, all rescues from Earth shelters, lounged on cushions while diplomats from across the galaxy observed them with a mixture of fear and fascination. It turned out cats were remarkably effective at teaching humility to warrior races, patience to aggressive species, and the fundamental truth that size matters far less than attitude. David occasionally consulted, mostly answering questions like why cats knocked things off tables and whether the purring was a form of hypnosis. But mostly, he just went back to his normal life, working from home, with Mr. Whiskers sleeping on his keyboard and occasionally becoming an intergalactic incident. As for Vex'thor, he spent his community service teaching angry teenagers about the importance of thinking before acting, backing down from unwinnable fights, and never, ever underestimating an opponent just because they looked harmless. It was a lesson he'd learned the hard way. And somewhere in Portland, a cat yawned, stretched, and knocked a coffee mug off a table for absolutely no reason except that he could. Because that's what apex predators do.